following podcast contains spoilers and some nasty language.
We watch a thing. We watch a thing.
Hello everybody and welcome to We Watched a Thing with Billy and Dave. We're here with you again.
Cocks in hell. I'm in the spirit of things.
You've been possessed there, mate. Do I need to call in an exorcist?
I'm in the spirit of things. I'm on point and thematic.
You are, because we're talking horror this week. We're talking two horrors, and we're going to start with, as you alluded to, The Exorcist Believer, 2023 American supernatural horror film directed by your favourite, David Gordon Green, who does nothing but make franchises better. He co-wrote the screenplay with Peter Sattler, and it is the sixth installment in the Exorcist franchise, although this is a direct sequel to The Exorcist from 1973. Stars Leslie Odom Jr., Lydia Jewett, Olivia O'Neill, Jennifer Nettles, Norbert Leo Butts, and Ann Dowd, along with Ellen Burstyn and Linda Blair reprising their roles from the original. And what is it about, Dave?
It's about a couple of girls who walk in the forest and get possessed and shit, and then they
there's an
exorcise them. Yeah.
So, okay, all right. Show your cards a little bit early there, mate. I'm guessing
dog
that you
shit.
didn't...
This movie is dog shit.
Well, there we go. Wow, right out of the gate.
It's so fucking awful. I went in with zero expectations, and it still disappointed me.
Right, because I was going to say maybe it's because my expectations were so low, but this it exceeded my expectations. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's good. I messaged Topher before I went in, and I said, I'm doing a double feature of Exorcist Believer and Saw X tomorrow. What are your guesses on scores? I'm guessing a 3 and a 7 respectively. And he wrote back and said a 3 and a 5. So my expectations were very low, but they were. I got to say, the first hour of this film, I really actually liked. I actually really liked the setup and the build up that we got in the film. I thought that the acting was good. I thought that the direction was really solid and competent.
It was definitely better at the front.
Yeah.
It got progressively worse.
As soon as we get Burstyn in and we bring back that character, that's when the film completely fucking falls apart. And it really pisses me off because I actually thought the screenplay towards the beginning was really strong as well. But the problem is, as soon as you get into the quote-unquote horror section of the film, the final kind of 45 minutes being the exorcism itself, it's shit. It's shit. That's when it really falls apart for me.
So bad. Yeah, I mean, we'll get to poor old Ellen Burstyn, but I mean, I'm with you. I think definitely the front third-ish to a half. I can't. I'm not sure where.
I was shocked how short the film was.
It's better. The up until you get Ellen Burstyn coming in her saintly white garb and basically coming in like almost an angel.
Yeah.
That is definitely the best part of the film. I don't think it was good. I still think the character development was pretty subpar. I didn't really give a shit about any of them.
Yeah, right. I actually
it's a big problem, and it's going to be hard not to draw comparisons to Friedkin's film because this, I mean, beat for beat, it's basically treading the same ground.
Well, this is
failing at every step, but there's no deviations from really the plot beats of the original.
I like the characters. I thought Leslie Odom Jr. was really enjoyable in this role.
He was the best.
Yeah.
I think one of the many failings is that the girls are not given equal time, character development, anything. We know nothing and we don't give a shit about the white people.
Yes, that is true. That is the biggest flaw.
Not only do we not get any character development, but they're sort of painted as kind of really religious nuts who... And so if it were a better director, I would have believed the fake out that we get at the end and thought, oh, wow, they killed the girl that we like. But because he's a shit director, I knew that it was a fake out. And
yeah,
I knew that we were going to.
fake,
I knew we were killing off the girl that no one cares about because no one cares about her, and because the parents are horrible, especially the dad, who was the one that kind of broke the pact about not picking a side.
Yeah.
But one of the many things that makes the original Exorcist one of the greatest films of all time is that you really care about every single character. You care about Merrin, you care about Damien Karras, you care about Chris McNeil, you care about Reagan, obviously. You even care about, what's his name, Burt Dennings.
Yeah.
They're given really, it's not over a lot of time. That's not a really long film.
No,
but
yeah.
You care about every single death. And particularly once you get to Merrin and Damien Karras in particular, they're heart-rending deaths, and you really care. I didn't give a shit about anyone in this film. Any one of them could have died, wouldn't have cared.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree a little bit. I did care about the characters, particularly in that first hour. I think it was far stronger. And I had heard, obviously, extremely bad things. Like I said, my expectations were low. And this is where I was really disappointed in that second half, is up until then, I actually spent the first hour thinking that this movie was wrongly derided by association. Like you say, it's hard not to compare it to the original film. And of course, it's never going to fucking touch that. And I spent the first...
in with a director who is notorious for taking another beloved horror franchise and dragging it progressively further and further into the ground with each iteration.
And I spent the first hour thinking that this film had been wrongly maligned because of those associations. I was like, if this film was not... If they had given this film a different name and not... Because for the first hour, like you say, it follows some plot beats and stuff, but there's no link at all. There's no association. And I think the first hour actually, like I said, it really worked for me. I found it intriguing. I did care about the girls. I found it interesting when they returned and they were trying to figure out, what had happened. I thought the hospital scene was really strong where they were testing them to see if they'd been assaulted and stuff like that. I actually thought all those beats worked. And then the second that you got...
Poor old Ellen Burstyn.
Yeah, the second that she came back, I was like, oh no, they really dropped the fucking ball here. Like, this is bad. From that point, even the dialogue became cheesy. When she's telling them, oh, it's all about being together. That's what we need. You just need all of you together. And it's like, well, that's shit.
It's like, well, we can't get either of the priests from the first one because they're dead.
Yeah.
We'll just get the mum, but we'll treat her like she's the Exorcist.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's in the name of the fucking movie, The Exorcist.
Zuzu's there going, I know you. And she's there going, oh, he knows who I am. Why? You were the mum that wasn't even in the fucking room when The Exorcist took place. Yeah. You were downstairs.
Yeah. I
Father
agree.
Merrin, yes, they know who Father Merrin fucking was. When he came, he's like, oh, Merrin, fear the priest, fear the priest.
Yeah.
No one gives a shit about the mum of the girl. No. Why is she suddenly bedecked in white and coming in like she basically like a surrogate for Father Merrin?
It's even addressed in the screenplay when you see there's that moment when Leslie Odom Jr.'s character, who I forget his fucking name because who cares, when he's researching this story after he's given the book by Ann Dowd and he's watching Ellen Burstyn on... She was fantastic, as always. I mean, she always is. Yeah. I actually find her distractingly good because I see her now and I'm just like, oh, fucking Handmaids.
She's like, who's the other one that was in like Justified and, no, can't remember. Mental blank. But really
when he's watching the talk show with Ellen Burstyn on it, and she's like, I'm not an exorcist. I'm not, but I just, I studied the exorcists. I looked into everything they did.
I studied the practices from every culture on earth. I know as much as anyone does.
It's just, it didn't work for me at all. It was just bad, and it got bad from there. I have to address the biggest flaw with this film too, which I'm sure you feel the same way. The Exorcist is famously touted as the scariest film of all time. Whether you agree with that, whether you feel it's maybe dated today or some things have topped it, whatever.
There's nothing scary about this film.
This movie's not scary in any way. There was no... Like I said, I found the first hour intriguing, and I thought that some of the dramatic beats worked. The horror beats...
The first half was kind of like watching...
It was like a thriller in some ways. It was like a mystery. Yeah.
And it was interesting seeing the different approach of Leslie Odom Jr. versus, white Pentecostal nutjob family. And he was a single father with one kid. They were obviously a couple with 3 kids. And it was interesting seeing the different approach that each of them took. And that was all, it wasn't great, but it was fine. I was not hating it for the first half. I didn't think it was remarkable. I don't think it was particularly good, but it was fine. And I was there. I was like, okay.
I was shocked at how short the film was. I went to an 11 a.m. session this morning, and I was seeing Saw X at 1:15.
It's not that short. It was nearly 2 hours, isn't it?
The cinema website said the session would end at 1:10. I was like, okay, 2 hours, 10 minutes. That makes sense with trailers and stuff. Yep. The session finished at 12:45. It was an hour 45 in total.
Well, the film's there. You must know that's not included. It's 115 minutes. Am I right?
So an hour 45.
Yeah. I went to an 8:15 and a 6:15 of that, and an 8:30 of Saw X, and I was killing time for 15 minutes between them.
Yeah.
And
you must have had a lot of
we
trailers.
got like 5 or 6 trailers at least.
Yeah, okay.
A fuckload of trailers.
I think I only got 1 trailer. My cinema rocks.
Wow. That's good. Although, there was one trailer and I thought, fuck, that looks good. I'm looking forward to that. Can't remember what it was, but there's something good coming up that I didn't know was coming up. There you go.
Right.
A thing.
So, all in all, how are you scoring The Exorcist Believer then?
Oh, look, it fails on every front. And the latter half is so badly written and so inferior in every way to freaking film. They couldn't even get the fucking voice of Pazuzu right.
Yeah.
And they would have had an army of fucking audio technicians and sound mixers and things, and they couldn't manage to replicate or even match Mercedes McCambridge strapped in a chair after she'd gargled raw eggs and chain smoked for a week. Fuck off. David Gordon Green, stop making movies. You're a fucking hack and you're terrible.
I think they did a much worse job in this film as well of even the sync, like the lip sync with that dubbed voice.
No, it was terrible.
It didn't even look like it was coming out of the actress's mouth.
And if you can't replicate what a human can do with whatever... this would have had a much bigger budget than Freakin'. It just didn't have the talent behind it. It didn't have the emotional impact. It wasn't tense. It wasn't scary. None of it worked. I'm 2.5 out of 10.
Wow. Okay.
That is entirely for Ann Dowd. And
wow.
I'm not even giving points for Linda Blair because she should have said no. She should have had more self-respect.
She rocks up in the final 2 seconds and says one line. It's me, Reagan.
I was half expecting them to not show the face because I thought surely she didn't agree to this. And then I remembered chain teeth and I thought, she'll rock up for any fucking movie. This movie sucks.
Like I said, my expectations were at a 3, but this did exceed them. I'm actually landing on a 5 in the end because
Jesus Christ.
And I think that's just a completely mediocre. Like I said, there's nothing in this movie that I found offensively bad. I didn't hate my time with it. I had an okay time. Like I did a double feature and it was fine. But yeah, the final half of the film really drags it down. I think that if this film had done what it could just to step aside from the Exorcist name a little bit, but instead it just seems to be fully kind of doubling down on trying to cash in.
When it doesn't have an exorcist in it?
Yeah. It
has a whole bunch of people. Ann Dowd, there's some weird Catholic priest who spends most of the time in the car. We've got a fucking Haitian voodoo priestess. We've got a Pentecostal... What's his name from all of those 80s teen movies who's a Pentecostal minister in this?
Yeah.
There's a raft of different faiths in there, but there is not an exorcist in this film.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm with Joey DiCarlo. It should have been called Exorcist Belieber, and it should have involved Justin Bieber and his fans being killed by a demon. And then I would have been there.
Yeah.
This movie's fucking terrible. I would watch John Boorman's Exorcist 2 10 times in a row before I watch this again.
Well, there you go. That lands an 8 out of 20 from us here at We Watch the Thing, so not a recommend. That seems
generous. Can I take my score down?
All right, well, let's get over to the second film of the day, see if that fared any better. Another sequel. We are talking about Saw X, which is a 2023 American horror film and the 10th installment in the Saw film series that serves as both a direct sequel to Saw and a prequel to Saw 2. It's directed and edited by Kevin Groothart and written by Peter Goldfinger and Josh Stolberg. It stars Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith reprising their roles, along with Sinov Mokadi Lund, Stephen Brand, Renata Vaker, and Michael Beach. And what is it about, Dave?
It is about Jigsaw thinking that he has been presented with a cure for his cancer and going through a course of treatment, only to find that he's been kind of taken by a bunch of hucksters and their dodgy fake cure and taken for a ride, and then sort of wreaking revenge on them in Jigsaw fashion, essentially.
Did you have high hopes for this one? I did. I'd heard nothing but good things about it.
No, I'd heard good things, so I was expecting it to not suck. I'd intended to kind of binge through all the ones because I'd seen, and you could probably help me piece it together. I'd seen either Saw 2 and Saw 3, or I'd only seen Saw and Saw 2. I'd seen the most recent, I think the last one I saw involved him spending a fair chunk of it in a hospital bed, and the doctor treating him is one of the main characters. So I'm not sure whether that's 2 or 3.
I think that's the first one.
No, the first one's Carrie Elway's lying on a bathroom floor for the whole fucking movie.
Yeah, it is, which is easily the best one. But Carrie Elwes is his doctor.
No, a female doctor.
Oh,
like
okay.
A dark-haired, sort of Hispanic-y woman, I think.
It must be 3. That must be 3, I believe.
Maybe that's 3. So I'd seen up to that.
I mean, as it turns out, as I just read, this is a direct sequel to 1 anyway, so...
Doesn't matter. Although I think I did go and do a little bit of reading up when I knew I didn't have the energy to go and watch through 5 or 6 or whatever films. And so I kind of knew the basics of the franchise, that Carrie Elways had become an acolyte of his at some point down the track. Shawnee Smith, that's the chick from The Practice, the girl. From,
from Becca.
Oh yeah, of course, of course, she's the hot chick in Better. Oh my
she
god,
is.
she was in that.
Also, one of the hosts of Scream Queens, the excellent reality show that I've made you watch. Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
So she'd been a victim, but then kind of survived and bought into it, and then
I believe Saw 2.
Gone
straight
a bit
from Saw 2, she's on his side and helping him.
But she'd gone crazy later in the films that I hadn't seen, and kind of just started killing folk and not doing, because he obviously has a very strict moral code, and it's all about giving people that they must have the ability to survive the test, or it's not fit for, it's not what he's after.
Yeah.
And so he punished her and he put her through another test or whatever, and then she got back on Team Jigsaw, I don't know. And then you've got a cop who may be Costas Mandylor, or it may be Michael Paré. They all look the same to me. But there's a detective who is also his assistant, who popped up again in this one. So I kind of knew those players. It didn't, when they came back in, I knew who they were.
Yeah.
Which was good, because otherwise I would have been quite lost in this. I do have questions about this film, though.
Yeah.
Which I'm hoping you'll answer as a
well. Let me say
that franchise.
Let me say that while my expectations were exceeded for Exorcist Believer, they were not met with this film. I think that this is nowhere near as strong as I had heard, or as people would have you believe. I think it's interesting in some ways. The first kind of half hour plays out a lot more like a like a drama, like a character study of him going through treatment and stuff.
The first half hour of this.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I expected. I was really into it. And I was actually disappointed when it just turned into another Saw movie.
Well, and what disappoints me about it is that I was hoping that this might return more to the original Saw. Like you said with Saw, it's Cary Elwes and Lee Winnell trapped in a room. And that's kind of it. And the game
it's a
in
little
that
bit,
film is more like a puzzle. It's like like an escape room. They have clues and stuff.
Well, I very much early on had that and Cube kind of in a box together as these kind of low budget, clever 100%. Things that were, locked room type scenarios where you didn't know what was going on and there was a lot of mystery and you were sort of spoon-fed little clues as you went along and you worked it out at the same time as the characters. There was a lot of similarity in those two films. And then obviously Saw became Saw and Cube got some shit sequels.
I mean, because the original Saw, I would define almost more as like a crime thriller than a horror film. It's not really
a horror movie.
I would put it with, say, Seven, for example. And I'm going to be one of the rare people who would say I think Saw is better than Seven. I think Saw is a really fucking good film. Crazy. I think it's a really good film. Maybe it's the Cary Elwes love, but I think that's a really strong film with a great twist. I think the characters really work. I think Jigsaw's good in it. It has maybe 2 scenes of these more kind of torture puzzles, which is the scene with Shawnee Smith, and I think there's one other from memory. But the majority of the film is not like that. And then from 2 on, and just progressively as we went, it became more about the machines and the gimmick of the traps to the point where, like in this film, you've got...
I pull back a little bit. Unlike Seven, where everything in the film Seven is completely believable and realistic. I mean, yes, he's an absolute full-on psycho, but there's nothing in that film that I look at and go, that couldn't happen. Whereas the whole franchise of Saw after the first one... is 100%. Ludicrous. There is no way anyone could create these elaborate traps.
Yes.
They don't. There's no way they could have the money that they wouldn't be found out, etc., etc. And that was one of my issues with this film. It's completely unbelievable that he, in the space of a day or whatever time
sets all of this up,
could
builds these machines,
rebuild their entire place in Mexico with bulletproof glass and all this fucking stuff and these it's ludicrous. It really is.
So I did not love this film at all. I think that some of the puzzles are kind of, well, I mean, none of them are puzzles. That's the wrong word for them. This is not the first film. They're all very straightforward. Do this, do that, do this. None of the characters have to figure anything out at any point. It's just cut this out of your arm or cut this out of your brain.
Brings me to the other, my understanding, and maybe I'm missing something because I haven't seen the whole thing, the franchise in its entirety. My understanding is that John gets cancer. It gives him a different sort of take on life, and he wants to stop people wasting their lives and force them to appreciate the value of life.
Yes,
and what will you do to survive? And it's a paramount importance that these kind of elaborate traps and games that he sets up and puts people in, they have to be able to survive it.
I was just going to say
if they commit to themselves to it.
Yeah.
In this film,
none of them
every single one of them commits to doing what he wants, and they all fucking die.
Yeah. Well, I agree.
Wasn't that the problem with Shawnee Smith? Is that she was making traps that were inescapable, and that everyone died, and that was against his ethos. His ethos was
100%
you will survive this. You will survive. My ultimate goal is not to kill you. It is for you to kind of go through an ordeal of fire, come out the other side stronger with an appreciation of life.
Yeah, I agree, and that was one of my biggest problems with the film as well. Once we do get into that more kind of, I won't even say horror section because it's not necessarily scary. I'd say gore section.
It's about as scary as Escape Room.
Like the time limits he sets, 3 minutes to do a task that cannot be done that quickly. Like you said, all these people commit to doing it. They maybe for the first 20 seconds are like, oh, I can't do this. And then they do it. And they do it as fast as they can.
Fucking brain guy.
Oh, he had no hope.
Who's the druggie? Gabriella. She starts almost immediately.
Well, I was going to say and what really pissed everyone else had a time limit before something happened. They were like, "You've got 3 minutes." Hers, the radiation machine is on and burning her from the get-go. She's being double tortured. She has to break off her foot and hand while suffering burns. Why doesn't she get 3 minutes to crack off her foot and hand before the radiation machine turns on?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's impossible.
She's the one
it's
they both like.
Yeah. She cannot win that game. None of them can. That, I agree with you. That, to me, is the biggest flaw of this movie, is that it is much more murdery and bloodthirsty, at least than... I fell off the Saw franchise as well, for the same reasons that you did. Like, this is not the first movie.
I do not believe for 1 second that Leigh Whannell had the intention of a franchise when he wrote the first film.
No.
The first film feels like it was written as a one and done thing. It has an end. It's not a happy end, but it's an end.
Yeah.
And I don't think he had any intention of turning Jigsaw into this. You know, he's now the good guy in the film. There are no protagonists with whom we're kind of hoping they get out of this.
100%.
We hate all the people that are being tested. Even Gabriella's a kind of a thieving drug addict, even if you sympathize with her more than the others. But none of them are your protagonist. Your protagonist is now Jigsaw and Shawnee Smith. And Shawnee Smith's a fucking psychopath.
Yeah, this is like the Jigsaw version
John
of
has
Joker.
an ethos. Yes. Yeah. Whereas the first film, even though you kind of get a reason for what he's doing, he's still a psycho. And your protagonists are the admittedly flawed and fallible humans of Gary Always and Leigh Whannell.
You might forget there's also a police officer in that film. It cuts between them in the room trying to escape.
Danny Glover?
Yeah, and yes, Danny Glover chasing him down, and it is more like a crime procedural thriller in a lot of ways. Yeah, exactly. Whereas this
Jigsaw
film
is slightly more sympathetic than John Doe, but really, it's still pretty much the same in terms of your sympathies. Yeah, and they've flipped the whole thing. It's like when you get to those shitty, cheesy Nightmare on Elm Street films where you're kind of rooting for Freddy just because everyone else is either Roseanne Barr or Tom Arnold. And you don't give a fuck, or they're idiot teenagers, and you're just kind of waiting for a cool kill.
Yeah,
and to me that's shallow and it doesn't match up to that first film.
I agree 100%. So, I mean, there were bits of this film that I liked. Obviously, the score is fantastic as it is with all of the Saw films. In fact, I forgot to mention in Exorcist Believer as well. The score is probably the best.
Oh, my God. Can I sue on behalf of Mike Oldfield for the fucking god-awful cover bullshit attempt to... Oh, yeah. No, we're on Saw now. I'm moving on.
I thought the direction was good. I liked the cinematography. I thought that Tobin Bell... His performance as Jigsaw is good.
I sound negative. I didn't dislike this film. Maybe it's because I was watching it 10 minutes after I finished watching the fucking god-awful David Gordon Green pile of shit. But I didn't dislike this film. I liked it. I really liked Tobin Bell's performance. Shawnee Smith was good.
Yeah.
The baddies were all suitably horrible. One thing I didn't get, the ultimate baddie, that fucking blonde Eurotrash who was the architect of the whole horrible thing, she lives. What the fuck?
Yeah, I was a bit the same. I was the same. And all she has to do to survive is hurt somebody else again. Yeah, she doesn't actually have to suffer or maim herself. All she has to do is kill the other dude.
The whole ethos of Jigsaw was just seemingly thrown out the window.
Yeah, I agree. I hated that ending that she lived. And I don't know if you're meant to read it as ambiguous, that maybe she still doesn't get out of the room or something. But I mean, like,
I thought she was stuck there. It didn't land for me. But you literally see the gas get turned off.
I know, and I thought that when the gas got turned off,
she would starve to death with her head through the hole.
Yeah,
that would be a fitting punishment. But
that's what I thought was going to happen. When the gas got turned off, I thought that at that same point, that little window hole would close and like decapitate her. But it didn't. Nothing happened. She lives.
Yeah,
I agree.
Maybe it's because he's got two more of these. There'll be another film. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe
So I mean,
she'll pop up
I'm
in
the
next-
same as you. I sound negative, but similar to Exorcist Believer, I had a totally fine time in this movie. Like, I mean, if you're there for the gore and the traps and stuff, I think they work to an extent. Like I said, I don't think any of them can actively escape. But if you're there to see people have to decapitate themselves and stuff, that's fun.
Yeah. And I think if you're there for... I almost wish I'd never seen another Saw film, because I think all of the major failings of this are to do with the character of Jigsaw and the ethos that they've built up around his mission and what he believes, all of which fail horrendously. But if you don't have that baggage, I think the first sort of third to a half of this film I really enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah.
Him that sort of drama of him going out finding the, you know, I was disappointed when that wasn't the whole film. I thought, geez, that's a ballsy move. If this film,
I wondered at what point it was going to turn. I was like, this is going for quite a while. Like, I wonder if this is the film. And yeah, that is a ballsy move.
The typical Saw poster with the torture thing, that particular
was a fantasy. Yeah,
was a fantasy, and it was very early on.
Yeah,
so it kind of, you know, they lent into the deception that maybe this film's not going to be like the others. Maybe this is the end of the franchise and it's just going to be him going through this process, and maybe the cure doesn't work and he just dies at the end. And I would have been fine with that. I was quite enjoying that.
Yeah.
But it's a fine film. Tobin Bell's excellent.
Yeah.
Everything about the production, the direction, everything's fine. I just think the story is a bit of a misstep in terms of who this character is supposed to be.
Agreed, yeah. So I landed exactly on a 5 for this film. Same score I gave Exorcist Believer. That exceeded my expectations slightly. This didn't meet them slightly. A 5. Totally average film. Enjoyable time. If you are in the mood for gore and stuff, it's there and it's pretty fun. But I agree. For me, the failings are to do with the characterization and the pacing and just a few issues like that.
Yeah, I'm a 5.5. I think it's better than a pass. I enjoyed my entire time with this film, and it is more than twice as good as Exorcist Believer. So in theory, you should be giving this a 10 because it's twice as good as that piece of shit.
So next week, mate, there's nothing coming out. What do you reckon we should do?
I reckon we do another top 10.
Okay.
I'll give you a couple of options of things that I was playing around with. I thought either top 10 movies that everyone needs to see, or top 10 actors or actresses that you will literally read out the phone book.
Oh, let's do that one. Let's do that.
That one?
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Everyone can guess how high Ben Affleck will be on my list.
The Ben Affleck carry-on waste.
Yes. Yeah.
Patrick Wilson,
right.
three-way fighter.
Oh, no, you're guessing my whole list. You got to be quiet, mate. Everyone knows my top 3 now.
Everyone already knew your top 3 the same way they know my top 1.
All right. Well, that's next week's episode. That's going to be fun. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing. And we'll catch you next week.
Do not go and watch Exorcist Believer.